Good morning, Kevin.
Morning, Bede. How are you?
Good, thank you.
What are we going to talk about today, Bede?
What we're going to go into is two things, but one of the things that one of the things that's very important is the is understanding every appearance in our life in the right light.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you look at fundamentally what our life is here we're facing the presence of reality appearing in different forms, coming and going in terms of different forms. Is that right?
Yep, moment by moment there seems to
Yep.
be a...
Yep. The form could be a tree, or it could be the floor, cars going by, thoughts, feelings, sensations.
a situation involving a group of people or a person or whatever.
Whatever. So what happens is that when we look at it like this, is that we can see that our living in the world consists of facing various forms of appearances that are just momentary existing and then passing away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So looking at a tree, the next moment I'm looking at my wife, the next moment I'm looking at my child.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The coming and going of appearances. Okay?
Yep.
Now, one of the problems with if people become kind of spiritual is that they think that there are certain appearances that are okay and there are certain appearances that are not okay. There are certain appearances that are spiritual and there are certain appearances that are non-spiritual. There are certain appearances that are right and there are certain appearances that are wrong.
Mm.
And so what happens is they split their experience in half between what they consider to be good, right, and holy, spiritual, and the ones that are not considered good, right, and holy.
Mm.
If, for example, if a person's experiencing strong sexual feelings, strong hostile feelings, strong feelings of confusion, depression, whatever these are, right?
Mm.
Often they would say, oh, well, this means that the very fact that there are appearances like that in my life means something about me.
Mm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because what happens is that it's a very interesting thing that what Swami Dayananda talks about. He says that we must become different. We must change in order to understand the vision. And therefore, because we have to change, that's what a spiritual life is. That's why we need a spiritual life. Mm-hmm. In order to change so that we can understand the vision.
Yeah. And
what's quite remarkable about his vision is that everything that is occurring, everything, no matter what it is the presence of reality in the form of a functioning universe, which is perfectly in keeping with the intelligent arrangement it is.
Yeah, that's a mouthful. Yeah.
Okay. Now, this is extremely important because often we feel we have our own mind, don't we?
Mm-hmm.
I've got my mind.
Yeah.
And often we're unhappy with what happens in our mind, in this mind that we take to be our own. Is that true?
Yes. Yeah.
I'm having this reaction. I'm being malicious now. Oh, I don't like that. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. I want to wring my wife's neck right now. Oh, I don't like that.
Mm.
But what he's suggesting is that there's no my mind.
Mm-hmm.
That we're always facing, whether we're facing the weather, a tree, or a thought or a sensation, it is the functioning order. And its functioning is entirely out of our hands.
Mm. But we often don't see that. We often see it as, well, it's this is the appearances of my life, and we have a certain meaning that we have to those appearances, which we think everyone else has, or it's the only meaning that can be had in relation to appearances.
Yeah, we think there's an inside and there's an outside. There's outside the world and there's inside my mind. But really all we're facing at any one moment is the presence of reality in the form of these coming and going appearances which are unfolding according to laws. Okay?
Yeah.
So when we look at our mind, you see, we can, when we're looking at the appearance of the weather, if the weather is actually raining, do we get upset about the weather, Kevin?
We can.
Well, we can do, but normally speaking, we don't get up. We accept it because we know it's completely outside our hands. We don't have this idea it should be different, do we?
There can be some people.
Yeah, but can we just keep it for the sake of argument?
Yes.
Okay. If basically we always have this conflict between what is actually happening as opposed to what we think should be happening.
When it's raining, we don't think it's wrong. We mightn't like it, but we don't think it's wrong.
Yeah, but that's something different. It's raining and we don't like it. Finish.
Yeah.
Both of those are a fact to be aware of, aren't they? The fact that it's raining is the operation of the order. The fact that I don't like it is also the operation of the order. But I'm not adding any should be, am I?
No.
Now, if I was really finicky, I might go, oh, I shouldn't be upset about the weather because I'm spiritual and I've got to be accommodating. I should be accommodating. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
So then I've got a conflict now because I've listened to Swami Dayananda and it says you should accommodate everything. Then I notice that it's raining and then I don't like it. Then I think that I shouldn't. I think there's the fact that I don't like it. I don't approve of the fact that I dislike it because I think I should accommodate everything. This is a misunderstanding.
Yeah. Because
both events, the weather and my reaction, are just appearances that are coming and going. And that is what has to be accommodated. So accommodation is being alive to whatever is happening. So that I'm not caught up in this conflict between what is actually happening and what I think should be happening.
Okay.
Now, normally we don't apply that to the weather, but we definitely apply it to ourselves. Now, I, as an individual, have absolutely no control over what psychological reactions will appear in me and depart in me. I've got no control over that.
Yeah.
I think I should have control over that. And I often base my self-opinions on what my mental state is at any one time.
Yep.
And I blame myself. I shouldn't feel that way. I should be peaceful. I should be loving and kind.
Yeah.
So I berate myself for not reaching a certain spiritual standard. Now, Swami Dayananda says there are no spiritual standards as such, no spiritual ideals. He said that ideals are the basis of bitterness.
Ideals are the basis of bitterness.
Let's imagine that I think that I should be a nice, sweet person.
Yeah.
And suddenly I find myself having very vicious thoughts. Then I'm going to be self-hating, aren't I?
Yeah, you won't approve of yourself. That's right.
I'm not going to approve of myself because I'm considering that myself is being vicious. And those thoughts shouldn't be there.
Yeah.
So it's extremely important to be able to just simply, when we understand what we mean by graceful acceptance, we mean that we abide in an appreciation that what we're looking at any one moment is the presence of God in the form of a functioning order, or a function, or that is functioning perfectly in keeping with the intelligent arrangement, is that never changes. And this enables us to see our thoughts, our feelings in the right light.
Accepting, receiving, rather than rejecting, resisting, rejecting.
Quite.
So you're not adding to the to the psychological order, if you like.
Well, what's actually important is that we can sometimes think, oh, what I've got to do is if I can just suddenly one day reach the state of mind that'll be free of conflict. I used to try and hope for that one day my mind would be clear. And what I meant by clear, I had a very clear idea of that, with absence of any form of negative psychological reaction, what I called negative psychological reactions. I thought that's what having a clear mind was.
Yeah.
Now, what's remarkable with the Swami Dayananda teaching on what we're always looking at is that we discover that we can be relaxed in ourselves and composed in ourselves in the presence of thoughts coming and going, no matter what those thoughts are. That what's important is me being alive to facts, me being to gracefully receive whatever is here, to be abiding in graceful acceptance, so that whatever is here is accepted. That's being clear-minded. It's not what content is active that's becoming active.
It seems this sort of thing.
Could you speak up, please, Kevin?
So it just seems that what you're talking about is a bit like sometimes it's the cart before the horse, and what I'm meaning is that when you are alive to facts, appreciating Isvara in whatever form, I am quiet, but that's not the point here. If there are thoughts or whatever's going on, it's just it doesn't help to resist them or think they're wrong.
Well, it's his operation. It's the operation of his order. It's not mine. Nothing belongs to me. That's another teaching. You see, I think that I've got thoughts happening in me, don't I?
Yeah, that's common.
But in fact, thoughts are just simply part of the operation of this ginormous order, which is this universe. There's no such thing as my thought. There's just appearances coming and going. And it's the presence of reality in the form of these appearances coming and going. This relieves us of a great deal of, you see, what's important is, he makes a very important point, that when I wholeheartedly accept Isvara in whatever form is happening, whether it's sexual desire, hostility, depression, upset, disturbance, green trees, smoky cars, it doesn't matter. When I stand in a relationship of acceptance with Isvara, I appreciate myself as acceptable. This is the basis of appreciating myself, at being at home with myself, as myself.
When you recognize everything you're looking at is Isvara.
Well, no, the recognition enables you to abide in the graceful acceptance. You see, graceful acceptance is born out of the fact that everything we're looking at is the presence of reality in the form of this functioning universe, which is completely, perfectly in keeping with the intelligent arrangement of it. Now, this makes us relax, because we're no longer responsible for that, are we?
No.
I don't have to say, oh, I shouldn't be feeling this way. I shouldn't be thinking these thoughts.
But when you do come in relation to Isvara, like you do become quiet.
You do, as a natural and inevitable consequence, you become relaxed in yourself.
And you stop seeking, finding, objects or situations or things in the world, as it were, which you previously separate.
Because you're happy with yourself as you are, you're not trying to be happy. You're not trying to move from this point to that point. You see, the world of becoming is, I want to move from this point to another point. But in the appreciation of Isvara, the shifting into the appreciation of Isvara, there's not that movement. There's not that.
There's no desire or need to change or manipulate the world in the form of people, situations, isn't there.
It's not there. Because you're happy already. If you're at home with yourself, you don't have a desire to be at home with yourself.
Yes.
That's Swami Dayananda's psychology, the basis of his psychology, that when we are relaxed and composed and at home with ourselves, we are the binding desires, I must have this to be happy, I must have this to be happy, or that to be happy, they are neutralized. That's the mechanics of it.
Yeah.
So what's important here is that this is a shift. When we're resting in the lap of Isvara, there's a shift from the striving. That doesn't mean to say we're not actively doing what we need to do in terms of security and all of this sort of stuff, in terms of what life needs, what we need for our living. But we're not trying to get or acquire something to be happy in ourselves. We're trying to get and acquire things because we need them for our daily life.
You still may need a car, but you're not getting a car for your happiness. You're getting
that's the point.
It's useful. You still might need a house, but you're getting a house because it's useful to have shelter and a regular home to live and work from, or whatever.
Yes, but you're not trying to get these things in order to make yourself feel at home with yourself,
or to feel psychologically secure,
which is the same thing.
Yeah.
So that's very important. So there's no movement from one point to another point. Now this is very, very important. Okay, so you see, because it's not, you see, what happens is that normally we're caught in becoming, psychological becoming. I am this, and I want to become that, because if I become that, I'll be happy.
Yeah.
That's fundamental to our psychology and our psychological experience. Our experiences of life is that when we successfully move from this to this, we feel ego satisfaction, ego inflation. And when we fail to move from this to this, we experience ego dissatisfaction, in deflation.
That's sort of the common experience where there's no appreciation of Isvara. Yes.
No, that's right. That is just, this is being enclosed in this psychological seeking, if you like. Because I'm miserable, I want to be happy.
Yeah.
Okay, and I envisage the happiness that I am seeking, something away from me that I've got to get.
And even a positive, what might be regarded as a positive desire, all of this is in the ordinary experience. It's driven by this self-dissatisfaction.
Any future event that I want to have or have happen to me so that I will be happy in myself, is the basis of it is psychological insecurity and self-dissatisfaction, according to Swami Dayananda.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Now, so what we're looking at here is that we want to know, you see, we want to know, when he says, the individual has to change in order to understand the vision. Therefore, that's what a spiritual life is. A spiritual life, the whole purpose of a spiritual life is to bring about that change.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, we've been listening to that, you and I have been listening to that talk that he gave on appreciating the presence of Isvara, wasn't it?
Yes.
What was the series called?
Something like being alive to the presence of Isvara.
Okay, yeah, beautiful series. Okay, now, so I want to, in order to make this clear, I want to go into an event that happened to me about 8 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
I've been ripped off for some money.
Yeah.
And I was sitting in my my lounge chair, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was upset. So here I was sitting in my chair, but I was upset in my mind. Have you ever had a conversation in your mind about what you're saying to someone because you're so upset with them and you're thinking about them and it's called rumination.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, so here I was. Now, here I was thinking about what this person had done, and I was experiencing myself as a person who'd been victimized by their bad, wrong actions.
You were suffering?
I was, yeah.
Suffering thoughts?
Yeah, but no, not having. I was suffering, not having suffering thought. I was being suffering. I was being a suffering person.
Okay.
I was feeling as if that my being was completely being determined by what this person had done to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I was also thinking thoughts about them. I was thinking about them.
Mm.
Now, do you think? Now, here I was sitting in the lounge room, in my chair. This is what I was actually doing. Do you think I was knowingly? Do you think I was knowingly aware of what I was doing? No, in terms of sitting down, do you think I was aware of the fact that I was actually sitting down in the room?
I think you'd be aware of sitting down.
Where was it? Not when I was ruminating. I was completely in my head. So even though I was sitting down in the chair, I wasn't knowingly aware of the action that I was actually doing at that moment. Okay? Not even a little bit. I was completely absorbed thinking about this person and what they'd done to me.
Yeah.
Okay, now let's just have a look at this because this gets very interesting. Was that person there with me?
Not at the time of ruminating.
No. But so they weren't there, but there were definitely thoughts that I had about them, weren't there?
You were having experiences of him being there and what you'd like to say to him. Or...
Yeah, well, I thought that I was thinking about him.
Yes.
But in actual fact, I was thinking about my thoughts about him. So I had thoughts about him that I was thinking about.
Yeah.
That's what I want to point out. That's quite. Do you see that? It's very important.
Yeah.
I wasn't thinking about him. I was thinking about my thoughts about him.
You thought you were very objective at this point, weren't you?
No, I wasn't even worried about that. I was just upset. So I was thinking about my thoughts about him.
Yeah.
Because he's not there. But as far as I was concerned, I was thinking about him. Now, is the being of that person my thoughts about him? Is the being of that person my thoughts about him?
No.
No. Is the tree my thoughts about the tree? No. So here I was facing the world, which is this guy that's ripped me off at the moment. This is my current world.
Yeah.
But really, it was just simply my thoughts about him. Thoughts, notions.
Yes.
So I had this object, didn't I? This low life SOB that ripped me off. Okay.
Yeah.
And I wasn't aware that I was having thoughts about him. I wasn't aware that I was thinking thoughts looking at and thinking about my thoughts about him. As far as I was concerned, the experience was I was thinking about him.
Yes.
Isn't that interesting?
You were having experience of him, interacting with him, and that was unpleasant. And
I was thinking about him.
mm,
But really what I was doing was I was thinking about my thoughts about him, projected thoughts.
but you don't think you're thinking about him. You're experiencing him.
I think that I'm just thinking about him. Yeah.
Mm,
I think I'm thinking about him.
mm.
Now, this is what Swami Dayananda calls subjectivity. Because I'm seeing it, it's there.
Yeah.
So this is what he means by in my own world. So I have this object that I've projected, that's been projected unconsciously from my mind as an experience, and then I'm looking at this object and getting upset about it, aren't I?
Yeah.
Now, what about me? The experience of myself. I'm having not only am I thinking about him, I'm having an experience of myself as a very unhappy person.
Yeah.
A person who has been victimized by this person. A person who's been harmed by this person, and because they've been harmed by this person, they've made me upset. Okay, so we've got this two things here. We've got this object, which is a product of my thinking, and also this knowing subject, which is also an object, which is also a product of my thinking. So there's the experience of myself, this resisting, fighting self that I'm very familiar with, and what I'm fighting with. And right in the middle is this friction, isn't there?
Yeah.
Okay, so we have this structure. We have this, what Swami Dayananda called subjectivity, and it's extremely important to understand what subjectivity is, to understand what does it mean to be subjective. And there are two elements here, the nature of subjectivity and the structure of subjectivity. Now, the nature, the stuff that subjectivity is made out of, what is it? Notions. Notions. So when I'm looking at a snake instead of a rope, I have a notion that what's actual, what's real is the rope, right?
Yeah.
But I am experiencing a snake, aren't I? The basis of that experience is the notion there is a snake here. So when I'm thinking of this SOB that's ripped me off, it's a notion, isn't it? But I'm not aware it's a notion. I'm having an experience of this person who's ripped me off.
You're having experience of being a suffering person in the face of someone that's ripped you off.
Yes.
You don't think you've got ideas about.
No.
That's what you're experiencing.
I'm absolutely convinced that this is real. This is as real as the reality of the rope.
So
as real as the reality of a tree.
In subjectivity, you don't think you're having notions about a situation. You're experiencing that situation.
You're experiencing that notion. The notion has been transformed into an experience. It's been projected as an experience unknowingly. And so not only what are you facing as a notion, but the self that you're experiencing yourself to be, that's also a notion.
Yes.
Now, but I'm not aware of that. As far as in terms of experience, I'm experiencing myself as a suffering person.
Yeah.
Now, here's the rule. Whenever you are in conflict, any form of conflict, any form of friction, any form of pushback, this is a trendy word they're using these days, pushback.
Yeah.
Right? Any form, you know that in the presence of any form of friction, you are being subjective.
Yeah, I think that's a good rule. Any form of friction, any form of resistance or rejecting what's going on.
Yes, and out of this resistance comes the dualistic experience of me as a resistor,
yeah,
resisting the resisted.
And that me as a resistor will be suffering. Goes with the story.
Always, yes. That's why, yes.
Goes with the story.
Goes with the story. Now, this is like a waking dream. It's like a mirage.
Mm-hmm. But this is the meaning we give to these experiences. We don't think it's...
We actually do not see... Swami Dayananda says that we don't see our subjectivity. We don't see subjectivity. It's because it's delusional. We can only see it actually when we get at it.
You can only see what subjective really means when you know what it means to be objective.
Yes, but we cannot go into that yet, Kevin. Can we please stick with the subjectivity?
Yeah.
So what we have is we have the experience of ourself in friction with something other than ourself. Is that true?
Yeah.
We've got two things there: dualism, psychological dualism. Now, I once used to think that my suffering was set in concrete. It was just embedded in me. Does that make sense?
We think we have it.
Yeah, we have it, and it's in us. Now, Swami Dayananda brings about a very interesting point. He talks about that occasionally here you are, you're in the bush or whatever. You're in they don't use the word bush in America, but what do you call it? Trees and bush, nature. We're in nature.
Yeah.
And we may have various things going on in our life, but suddenly, because we're suddenly aware of what is, and the presence of what is comes in and takes up all the room in our mind, ourselves as a suffering person disappears for a moment.
When we're full of the presence of a beautiful vision of a sunset or mountains or trees or an ocean or a valley, we can suddenly, despite
our life is still the same.
Having a life where there can be many frustrations and dissatisfactions, suddenly we find ourselves content and happy in ourselves.
Yes. Now, what's important is our understanding of what this means. Here is this situation of ourselves being in a certain way and the world being in a certain way. Suddenly, all of that is set aside. Now, if it was true that I was genuinely an unhappy person, that my substance was misery and unhappiness, would that be possible?
No, because that suffering person you've just described disappears.
That's right. So it obviously can't be. What this does is it shows the fact that our suffering, our psychological suffering, is like a mirage. It only exists in the absence of the appreciation of the presence of reality. Now get this, subjectivity can only exist in the absence of the appreciation of the presence of reality as it is.
Or alternatively, it disappears when the presence of reality is.
Well, yeah, but we're going to go into that in a minute. But I want to go the negative way first.
Yeah.
Now, the thing is that we don't have to worry about once we know what subjectivity is, it takes so many different forms. It can take, like, have you ever been caught up in daydreaming?
Yes, Bede.
And imagination. You become an imaginer.
Yes.
Like all the different forms of suffering, like we can be bored, which is just really boredom. Actually, is the fact that we're not satisfying our demand for excitement. That's all boredom.
What is it? Can you say it again?
We're not satisfying our demand for excitement. You see, in our culture, the desire for sensory experiences that are exciting is inordinate. It's all pervasive. That's why sex is so important. That's why drugs are so important. That's why entertainment's so important. We need to be stirred up to feel alive. Okay?
Yeah.
So the thing is that our suffering, this experience is of subjectivity, is continually happening. We're continually being subjective. And this subjectivity the mirage takes many forms. Being angry, being sad, being anxious.
Being bored.
Being unhappy. Doesn't matter. It's all the same. It's one problem appearing as many different things.
Even being excited.
Yes. The only reason I love being excited is that I fear being empty and bored. So all ego inflation and ego deflation, that is our psychological life. That is the life of subjectivity on a spectrum. Goody, 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 goody. Yuck, 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 yuck.
So what you're really saying is subjectivity. The goal in our goal in subjectivity, when it's really ego inflation, to feel good about myself, or ego inflation.
It is a constant striving from ego deflation to ego inflation, and which we consider happiness. But both are a complete and utter mirage. They have nothing to do with happiness in the real sense of the word.
So it again comes back to that, something our teacher said, that we don't know what happiness is. We don't know that we don't know what happiness is. And we don't know that we need to know what happiness is.
Quite. Yes. Okay, now let's go back to the chair. Okay, so here I am. I'm unknowingly involved in subjectivity. I don't see it. I'm not aware of what I'm actually doing, because what am I actually doing? I'm sitting in the chair, aren't I? That's real. I'm sitting in the chair, but I'm not aware of what I'm doing, so I am not performing any action actually. Okay, there's here I am. What I'm actually doing, I'm completely unaware of, and I'm caught up and enclosed in my mind. Now, this is what Swami Dayananda calls myself as a thinker and myself as a doer is split. Okay, so this is one of the factors about subjectivity. Subjectivity always involves the split between myself as a doer and myself as a thinker.
Yeah.
Okay. Basically, I'm a somnambulist. I think that's it. Somnambulist. Yeah, somnambulist. I'm a sleepwalker.
And you don't know it.
Have no idea. All that's happening is I'm just caught up in a mindless dramatization of being identified with my psychological and physical content.
That's
emotions.
That's been triggered by some external event, situation, but we blame the situation or event, but it's
but my actual suffering is being enclosed in this subjectivity. Okay, are we tracking so far?
Yeah.
So here I am. I'm sitting I'm actually sitting in my armchair. I'm completely. First of all, I'm not occupied with what I'm doing. I'm occupied with myself. Bede, myself, I and me. It's what Dayananda calls being rooted in yourself. Not rooted in reality, rooted in myself. Okay?
Yeah.
Then suddenly something happened. Because I'd been practicing abiding in the appreciation of the presence of Isvara, I suddenly snapped out of it. I found myself just simply sitting in the chair. Right? There was a shift. Here I was just simply occupied with what I was doing, sitting in the chair, and I was relaxed in myself in that very action of sitting in the chair. Guess what happened to, first of all, that SOB that I was thinking about?
He disappeared.
He disappeared. And guess what happened to the suffering individual that I was taking myself to be?
It disappears.
Now, this was a tremendous learning for me. Because here was this absolutely radical shift. You know what the word radical means in Latin, Kevin?
Goes to the root.
It's the root. You know how when Swami Dayananda says a spiritual life, we have to lead us because we need to change. We need to lead a spiritual life. Right that moment, I was suddenly being spiritual. In other words, I was appreciating the presence of reality. I was sitting in the chair and I was simply being myself, relaxing myself in that very sitting. Okay?
But the transformative factor in that is that
was the appreciation of the presence of reality. It's like when you appreciate the presence of the reality of the snake, the rope, the presence of appreciation, the appreciation of the presence of the rope, the presence of the snake disappears, doesn't it?
And in that appreciation of the presence of reality, it's not some further thinking that you do. It's just in that appreciation is the transformative factor. It's not subject to your will.
The mirage disappears all by itself. I'm not thinking nice thoughts about myself. I am consciousness and I'm awareness and all this nonsense.
Or you're being mindful or any
none of that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
What I'm doing is, I'm abiding in the appreciation of the presence of what is. Now, isn't that extraordinary?
It is.
And what's interesting is that, but what's really interesting is this: when I disappear as a resisting individual, so does the object I'm resisting. Most of my life, until I was 56, I struggled with the object. My depressions, my sadnesses, my compulsions, my unhappiness, the people I was having trouble with, the world. Because I genuinely believed that they were the source of my unhappiness. There's things other than me my depression was making me upset. My anxiety was making me upset. My feelings of inferiority were victimizing me. Everything was victimizing me. My wife was victimizing me. Everything in the world, what the world does, it either gave me happiness or took it away. Mainly took it away. So I had a kind of a bitterness about life. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I was convinced that the location of the trouble was things other than myself. I never would have even, until I met the teaching of Swami Dayananda, I would never have thought that the basic problem was centered on me. What I was being. Okay?
So the solution is definitely relating to what you're being.
And the only thing that transforms the way you are being is coming into conscious contact with the presence of God or the presence of reality as it is, in the form that it is in. In this case, it was the form of the presence of reality in the form of me being there, sitting in the chair. Okay?
Yeah.
Now, there's a very interesting thing here, which I want to go over. This attitude of graceful acceptance or being relaxed in the lap of Isvara, it's not a disembodied attitude. It's not a disembodied state.
And by that you're saying it's not. Sometimes people, there's this idea with he can only abide in this appreciation in a quiet room or away from life or doing things or that sort of thing. And there's a problem with that type of thinking, I think.
Well, a great thing, because you see, when I talked to Swami Dayananda and asked him and had discussions with him about this thing of attitude, the attitude is the individual. So it includes everything, the mind, the emotions, and the body, the physiology. So when you're in this graceful acceptance, you are relaxed in yourself as an individual. Every part of you is relaxed. So it's not divorced from the body. That's why when the mind, myself as a thinker and myself as a doer, come together, and I'm abiding in being relaxed in the lap of Isvara, it is that relaxation is that. For example, when I came back to myself in the chair, right? Here I was. My mind was occupied first of all with knowingly with what I was doing. In other words, sitting in the chair, the actual action of sitting in the chair, and I was abiding in the lap of Isvara while I was sitting in the chair. So the attitude was a relaxed attitude while sitting in the chair. Okay?
Yeah.
Now, this is very important. We need to be able to shift, don't we, from being... The moment we notice there's any form of conflict, what do we know? Any form of friction. What?
We're in subjectivity.
Yeah, we don't have to know all the details of the subjectivity. Is it this? Is it that? Does it come from my mother, my father? Forget all that stuff. We just have to recognize, subjectivity. Okay?
Yeah.
Now, one thing about life is that we're always constantly engaged in activity. Is that true? We're always doing something. Is that true?
Yes.
Doing. And I mean that in the strict sense. Doing. Okay, so I might be lying in bed. I might be lying on the couch. I might be cleaning my teeth. I might be writing. I might be sitting. I might be speaking. Living requires that I do. Is that right?
Yeah, yep.
It's functioning. Living.
Yeah.
Now, what we want to do is we want to convert this living, these daily actions into a yoga. You ever heard that expression?
Yeah.
Now, Swami Dayananda says the way we convert action into a yoga is is the attitude we do the action with. You ever heard that?
Yes.
Okay, so the attitude is what transforms the action into a yoga. And a yoga is remember he says we're living a spiritual life in order to change so we can understand the teaching.
Yeah.
So yoga is what brings about the change. So when we're living a spiritual life, we're constantly bringing about a change in us. If there's no change happening, we're not living a life of yoga.
And by yoga, what do you mean by yoga?
It is something we do in order to change in ourselves so that we can understand the teaching. Okay?
Yeah.
Now, what we want to do is we want to change our daily life into a life of yoga. And in this sense, we're talking about karma yoga.
Yeah.
We're using action. Do you know what I mean? It's a yoga in reference to action. Okay?
Yeah.
Now, so the very first thing is that we noticed that when I was caught up in my subjectivity and the sitting in the chair,
yeah,
what happened was suddenly, first of all, I just simply shifted to being occupied with what I was actually doing. Actually, so when my mind was full of what I was actually doing. So what was I actually doing? Sitting in the chair.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, you can check this out for yourself. You go for a walk. I want you to go for a walk sometime, right?
Yeah.
And just simply occupy your mind, first of all, with just simply the walking you're engaged in. Okay? And then there's two elements. Occupy your mind with what you're presently doing.
It doesn't mean think about what you're presently.
No. Actually, just simply occupy your mind with what you're doing, whether it's cleaning your teeth, going to the toilet, sweeping the floor, washing the dishes, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Okay? Occupy your mind with what you're presently doing. And within that very doing, abide in the lap of Isvara. In that very doing, be relaxed in yourself while performing that action.
Yeah.
In that very doing. Now, because you are relaxed in the lap of Isvara while you're sitting down, if you're sitting down, like this morning I got up and I just sat quietly with myself. So I was sitting in the same chair, by the way, that we're talking about. I like my chair. My wife calls it Bede's throne.
Oh, very nice.
Okay? Yes. So here I am. I'm sitting in the chair, right? But I'm sitting in that very sitting. I am relaxed in the lap of Isvara. This converts this ordinary action of sitting into a yoga. This is the only thing that's going to convert it. Now, what's interesting is this. When I'm occupied with what I'm doing, and when I'm in that doing, I'm relaxed and composed in myself, I'm alive to everything.
There's a union between you as a doer and you as a thinker.
Yes, and not only that, I'm living in what Swami Dayananda calls Isvara's world. I'm living in the world as it is. I'm living in Isvara's creation, not Bede's creation. Okay? Now, what's very interesting about this is that your mind is you're no longer caught up in the future or the past. Even if you're sitting there and a thought about the future and the past comes, you're not lost in it. But you see, there's no ego. Now, in this, when I'm living my life like this, because it's living the wisdom, as Swami Dayananda calls it, there's no ego inflation because I've achieved nothing.
Yeah.
I haven't got happier, inverted commas. So there's no ego inflation and there's no ego deflation. I'm just simply being myself while knowingly performing the action of sitting here.
You're sort of feeling full.
You can't help but feel full, no. But what's interesting is that the more, but get this, the more we love being in Isvara's world and know what that means and love it, the less attractive various things will be. You see, when we begin, it might be, the thing is that the more we practice this, the deeper it gets. Does this make sense? Yeah. The deeper the appreciation that what is truly good is the abiding presence of God. You see, the presence of reality is abidingly here. The presence of reality is abidingly is. It abidingly is. Everything else is chopping and changing, isn't it?
Just appearances, but
they're coming and going. It doesn't. If you grab them, they're going to go. But
yeah.
this is something that is abidingly present.
Mm.
And when you come into conscious contact with it, what happens is you change as an individual.
Mm.
But what I'm saying is that you must knowingly practice the wisdom.
Mm. Mm.
And the thing is that you don't just convert my action here and my action there. You're converting your daily action, whatever that action is. When you wake up and you're lying in bed, you can just simply lie in bed. You know, you're very aware that you're lying in bed. You've become occupied with the action of lying in bed.
Mm.
But in that very lying in bed, you're relaxed in the lap of Isvara.
Mm. Mm.
And it transforms that lying in bed into a yoga.
Mm.
Because it transforms you.
Mm. Mm.
And then you get up and you go to the bathroom.
Mm.
And again, you are knowingly occupying yourself with what you're actually doing, but you're doing this action while resting in the lap of Isvara, while abiding in this attitude. And it's extremely important to see that this practice of karma yoga is every instant of the day. It is, and it involves what you're doing and bringing this attitude to what you're doing. And the thing is that the more you practice this, the more you knowingly and deliberately live your life whilst being relaxed in the lap of Isvara, what you're practicing is you're living in Isvara's world. You're living in the world as it is. And because you're relaxing yourself and composing yourself, everything becomes very present. The presence of reality, in whatever form it is, sort of stands out in a sense. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It occupies your mind.
You're not confused about trying to seek happiness in situations, people, and events.
You're not involved in that dynamic. That the dynamic of becoming, the psychological dynamic of coming, is trying to be happy. This is a shift into where there is a sense of well-being and stability and being at home with yourself. That is a natural consequence of coming into conscious contact with the presence of reality. And it's very, very important because we normally, and it's what Swami Dayananda calls, we're rooted in God rather than being rooted in ourselves. And so here we have this wonderful opportunity to live our life in this world, in an entirely different world, while still living in this world. Because normally we're caught up in this subjectivity,
which is the content of which is our psychological past.
Yeah, it can becoming active, but it's not the subjectivity. No, that's not the subjectivity, because our psychological past can become, I'm sitting quietly in the chair, and the thought of my father's death occurs to me. That's the psychological past being in operation, right? As an appearance.
Yes.
The problem is when I become identified with it, when I become a sad person, when I lose myself in being sad about that event. Does that make sense? So it's not, the problem isn't, like, unlike Western psychology, the problem is not the psychological processes that are active in me. It's when I become those, when I become my past, when I become my psychology.
When you're being your
when I'm being my psychology, and my psychology is being me, I'm gone.
Yes.
So that the whole purpose of the practice of karma yoga is to convert my daily actions into a yoga. And this is so essential, like what Swami Dayananda says. We have this vision of Vedanta, but in order to understand the vision, we need to change as a person. And he says that the spiritual, that's why we need a spiritual life. A spiritual life is to bring about this change. But the change is very simple. Instead of living in our world and being enclosed in our world, it's living in Isvara's world.
And you need to learn what that means by...
We need to become extremely clear on noticing when we're being subjective. And what's the red flag? How can we tell we're being subjective?
When there's a friction or resistance.
Any form of resistance, yes. And it can be a little resistance. You know how when you might be walking down the road and you feel a little bit kind of disgruntled? It's like, I'm disgruntled and I don't like it. That's the friction. I'm pushing back against the feeling of being disgruntled. But the moment I just simply occupy myself with what I'm doing, just walking, and just simply relaxing in Isvara's lap, in that very walking, the friction is gone. It's not that I've got rid of it. I don't try and get rid of my subjectivity. He actually says, be aware of Isvara in the form of that subjectivity. So we don't try and get rid of anything.
No, but you do.
So we're not trying to manipulate the objects. What we're doing is we're coming back to ourselves in this composed and relaxed, being ourselves in composed and relaxed. That's the emphasis. Doesn't matter what's coming and going. That is not our interest. That's in God's hands. Our interest is living in the world as it is.
But importantly, you can only be resting in yourself. That's based on knowing what God is, what reality is.
Yes. It's knowing the importance, the meaning that when you're actually simply appreciating the presence of reality in the form of what is here, that is appreciating the presence of Isvara. And that is the only thing that will lift you out of subjectivity. So here we are, I'm sitting here, and I just simply go, oh, I'm sitting here. So I quietly become occupied with the fact that I'm sitting here, and in this very sitting, I relax into the lap of Isvara. So I'm knowingly doing what I'm doing, right? I'm also, at the same time, relaxing myself, aren't I?
Yeah.
So I've transformed this action of sitting here into a yoga. And this goes for any moment, right here, right now, as I am, I can shift into Isvara's world. And I do it by simply becoming occupied with what really is, not what seems to be. And at any one moment, I can be just simply, I'm here, I'm sitting here, and I can look at the trees and listen to the sounds or whatever it is. But basically, I just simply am awake to the moment by being myself. But being myself is not possible when there's this split between myself as a thinker and myself as a doer. So what do? I occupy myself with what I'm doing. I occupy my mind with what I'm doing. And in the very doing that I'm doing, I relax into the lap of Isvara. Does that make sense? And this is the attitude. So I'm doing the action I'm doing with this attitude.
Yeah.
And what they say that formally is performance of action with proper attitude, which is karma yoga. Okay?
Yeah. And the book that where Swami Dayananda talks about the split of me as a doer and me as a thinker is the value of values, isn't it?
He mentions that. He says that he talks about the fact that when if you're not eating while you're eating, you're just caught up in conversation. There's a split between yourself as a doer, as a thinker, and as a doer. He says it's not possible to enjoy life when this split is happening. Pretty
significant statement, that one.
It's a very significant statement. So what I want you to do is go for a quiet walk and become very familiar with what it means to live in the world as it is, in the sense that Swami Dayananda means it. But just simply become occupied with the simple fact of walking, and in that very walking, be relaxed in the lap of Isvara while performing that action of walking, and you will see that you are living in the world as it is. The presence of reality takes up all the room in your mind, and the presence of reality appreciated sets aside the mirage of subjectivity. It's only a mirage. It's paper thin. Okay? Okay, Kevin?
Yeah, thank you.
See you next week. Bye-bye.